And so I rise to speak in support of this bill. I think it's incredibly important and also is in touch with the realities of Albertans. And I'll just to think a little bit on the remarks from the last member about what is real life. And I am amazed time and time again just how out of touch this government is with the realities of working Albertans. We have the lowest minimum wage in the country. We have some of the highest costs of living, which this government has allowed to balloon. That includes insurance rates going up by up to 15% over the next 2 years. They have failed to take any action on real affordability for Albertans, and I'll just point to simple things like a cap on increases for rents. The fact that I hear time and time again members from the other side talking about, in very boastful terms about how we have, the most homes ever. We have the most homes ever and rents are going down, and they fail to mention that that is after having the highest increases. I remember a time in 2024, not long ago, when we actually had in Calgary the highest rents across the country. Yeah. And so when we're talking about the realities of lived Albertans, I'm always awestruck by the ability of members from the other side to actively ignore the voices of their constituents. I'm sure you have many constituents who are making a $15 minimum wage. And I just want to point out what that looks like as an annual salary. As an annual salary, a minimum wage works out to about $31,500 a year. That works out to, I think, around $2,600 monthly. And if we look at the formula for affordable housing, I used to be the treasurer of a housing co-op and worked a lot with folks who had to receive subsidies because they were earning such low wages. And the formula is generally accepted to be at around 30% of what your take-home pay is, being that affordable rent. And in order to have an affordable rent at minimum wage, a person would have to be paying about $787 a month. So I want just to do a little bit of a temperature check here, Mr. Speaker. I don't know of any places. I see a lot of members on the other side who are in Calgary, who are in Edmonton, even Red Deer, some of the folks here on our side of the aisle. When was the last time rent was $787 a month for anyone? Yeah. So I hear them talking a lot about youth as well, and so I'll just touch on that with a little bit of a story. Picture this. You have a single mother working for minimum wage, 2 kids, 1 teenager, 16 years old, and the other one in elementary school or middle school. So that 16-year-old is asked by her mother to take on work because they can't afford to pay the bills. And obviously with the rents that we're seeing here, we know that that is a definite possibility. So now we have 2 people working minimum wage jobs. And I can see that there was a minimum wage profile done, and we're talking about maybe 5% of the population that's earning minimum wage. But about 59% of that population is women. And the daughter is working for 2 years in food service at the tiered minimum wage. So working for 2 years at the tiered minimum wage, doing an excellent job, getting excellent reviews, and when she turns 18 and informs her employers, she gets let go for someone who is able to earn the tiered minimum wage. At the same time, at that time, there was no STEP program, as there isn't now. So no avenue for this young person to make a wage and to make their way into better circumstances, as the member opposite was talking about, how education is the magic pill for earning a better wage. Well, I can tell you that that same single mother, we're talking from 1991 until 2008, continued to make just over minimum wage, decades later. And her daughter, barely making over that amount herself. With education, with student loans, having to save, to supplement, having to work that minimum wage job to supplement an income, even with student loans, to be able to get through university. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in very similar circumstances now. I see stories like this come through my office every day. That particular story was my story. That was my story. And further to that, we're talking about 2016 now, when the first increase in minimum wage was enacted. By this time, I have 2 kids. I have an education, I have a career behind me, and there's no work in Alberta. My husband had to work in BC, and we accepted our lot. And I worked part-time, again, in the service industry. And at that time, with an education, with kids in tow, and trying to pay our mortgage, I was making $12.20 an hour. Wow. So when we talk about being out of touch with reality, that's one story, my story. I'm very lucky to be where I am now. But sadly, this is the story that I hear from Albertans every day. Yeah. People working in the service industry. And I've heard members across the aisle talk about who deserves to make a minimum wage. If you just get an education, if you just work harder, you'll get there. Well, guess what? That's not happening here. We have youth who are making a tiered minimum wage, and this government is telling us that they do not deserve the same wage as their peers doing the same work. It is discrimination. And I think we're past that now in this province. We should be. I mean, given the actions of this government, maybe not. But I know that on the horizon there is better. And that's what Albertans deserve. Our inflation since 2018 has gone up by 20%, and minimum wage has not budged. No amount of hard work that these folks that I talk to every day, that perhaps any of these members could sit down and have a conversation with their constituents making minimum wage, no amount of hard work is making life more affordable for them. And in fact, this government, in another let them eat cake moment, is saying, increases for me, but not for thee. They increased their living allowance by 14% because rents were going up. It is shameful to look at Albertans and to say they do not deserve that relief on their wages. We talk a lot about the Alberta advantage, and I would implore the members opposite to think about who we serve. And I've said this before. We're talking about people in minimum wage jobs. The people who serve are the people that we serve. And they would be better served by this government to consider increasing the minimum wage and passing this bill.